Welcome to Nerds Explain It All. I'm Zach.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Nancy.
And this week we're talking about casting. Casting Talk 2. That's right. I think the way I'm going to number these is it's just going to be Casting Talk 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc., etc. So hopefully we have some OCD listeners who will see they listen to number 7 and are like, oh man, I have to listen to the first 6, even though they're like a year and a half old. That can get our hit counts up. That's my logic there. So, I mean, I would do that if I were a listener to something. So, we'll see. Most nerds, would you agree? We're all kind of OCD in our own way. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it's a good strategy.
Depends
we're all
what it
particular
is.
about something.
Yeah.
We all have our windmills, to quote Don Quixote. Let's lead off with Supergirl. Now, Supergirl may or may not be a spinoff from the Arrowverse. That's still up in the air because one of the executive producers, Greg Berlanti, is from Arrow and The Flash, is producing this show. And it's on CBS. So CBS owns CW. So theoretically, Supergirl could be part of the Arrowverse. So, first of all, what do you guys think about that? Would you like to see Supergirl attached to the Arrowverse? Arrow Flashverse?
No.
Why not?
Because you can't have that much power in the real... even though there are metahumans and all these things in the Arrow Flashverse, it's still based in, sort of a real-world reality. You can't have Supergirl in that. Because then you can have an Arrow versus Flash fight. That makes sense. But you can't have Flash versus Supergirl or Arrow versus Supergirl because she's unbeatable. She's freaking Superman with a skirt.
I'm not caught up on Arrow, as I am constantly reminded. But I agree with Steve. It does seem kind of...
You want to keep it separate?
It just is sort of... It seems like a good idea. I mean, I agree that, she's not on the same level. I mean, I think that her, struggles would necessarily be different from people like, Green Arrow or Batman or, whatever. People who are not, intrinsically, superpowered.
I think that Supergirl sort of needs, her part of her character, especially like an origin story type of situation, was she's sort of new and she has all these powers and she doesn't know how to do it. I think that I always liked the fact that she had Superman sort of like, you need to do this. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And she finds out. So what I'm wondering is this going to be like another Smallville, but with a chick?
That's exactly what it's going to be. That is exactly what it's going to be.
I'll tell you what we don't need is Smallville with a chick.
Well, that's what this is, unfortunately. It was... and this is why I kind of wanted it to connect to the Arrowverse, because I feel like there's all these shows going on in the DC universe, so to speak, on television, and none of them connect to each other. It's crazy. When you have pre-existing properties, connect them to each other, right? I mean, that's my logic. So, I mean, I'm not saying this should have been part of the Man of Steel universe. That's not going to happen, This isn't the Marvel here. But they could at least attach it to the CW-verse and have a Superman exist and barely see him. You know what I mean? Have these characters exist in that universe.
Yeah.
Just you don't have to see them all the time, right?
I agree.
And you cannot have a Supergirl without a Superman.
I disagree.
think it's kind of weird that they all exist. I think it's because whoever is making these decisions does not understand there's not one way to do a crossover. You don't even have to do that. It could just be a cameo. Everyone understands that if it's called Arrow, it's about Arrow.
Right.
It's not suddenly going to be Arrow with his buddy cop 5-episode extravaganza. Just do something traditional. The British always have they always have Christmas is always a good time
Christmas
for
specials, yeah.
something kind of weird or different or a crossover or whatever. Why wouldn't you just do something called a Christmas special? It's not actually about Christmas or whatever, but that's when you could have some characters come over. It's not all the time.
Well,
I think it's just really weird that I advocate for her having her own show with really no one else in it, but at the same time, if I thought they were going to do a good job with putting other people in it, I would be yeah, why not? Because that sounds cool.
Well, look at comic books themselves. You have a Supergirl comic book, you have a Batgirl comic book, you have a Red Hood and the Outlaws comic book, right?
Yeah.
So you have all these comic books, but they all come together when necessary, in the main titles, or even take it to the next step. You have a Justice League comic book, right? But you also have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and they all go their own adventures. I don't see why you can't why they're like, oh god, they exist in this world. Why don't we see them every episode? That's kind of a cop out, I think, to explain it. So we're totally burying the lead here on this story.
Let's cast Supergirl.
Who can pronounce this woman's name? Because I cannot.
I tried before we started recording, like out loud. And
if I had to guess, I'm going to say Melissa Benoist.
Yeah, I think that's...
Wait a second.
Maybe. Is there a T on the end? Hang on.
Yeah, it's Benoist.
Melissa Benoist.
Oh, Benoist.
How did you find that?
Google.
Well, now we know it's it's Melissa Benoist. Okay, that doesn't make more sense than Benoist. She looks like she could play the part, dye her hair blonde, and I wonder what kind of costume she's gonna have. And she better have a costume, for God's sake. All right, this is the 20 teens. Okay, we're
indeed,
people can wear costumes on television. Hopefully, the Supergirl costume from the animated series in Justice League, it was a little I don't know. It was a little too men fantasy costume. Would you guys
Absolutely.
agree? It's like, look at me in this cut-off T-shirt and the short skirt, and the traditional Supergirl costume is the Superman costume, just made more effeminate for a woman. So that's what it should be. Now, there's a lot of questions like, is Superman going to be the show? Who knows? I mean, as more and more casting comes out, we'll find out. But, this girl looks like she could do a good job. She was on Glee, and did a successful job from what I understand. She's also in the new movie Whiplash, which I have not seen. Have you guys seen Whiplash?
Mm-mm.
So, Oscar-nominated film, apparently really good. J.K. Simmons is in it. As the percussion instructor. She's also been in episodes of Homeland, The Good Wife, Law and Order, SVU. So she has a good resume. So who knows? I've never seen her act in anything. I know Lance said she did a good job on Glee. So that's probably just what they're looking at. Interesting that all these superheroes are coming from Glee now, because Grant Gustin was the Flash and he was on Glee. So
right,
who knew that was a superhero?
I'm glad that they got a relatively unknown. I think that's very important. I think that what they probably should do is kind of like with Flash, where they have I forgot his name, Dr. Wells.
Yeah, Ed.
And they have someone that's sort of like well known, and
Joe West, Jesse L. Martin.
So, and they should do the same thing with Supergirl, where they have all these unknowns.
Well, speaking of unknowns, they have also cast Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, Mehcad Brooks.
Yes. What do you think about that?
Well, I've only watched the first 4 seasons, but of True Blood, and I did see him in that. He's an actor. Okay, I think the most interesting thing is they did make him black, which is, why not? It's Jimmy Olsen is a dumb enough, he's not like this important. Make the dumb guy black. No, I mean he's. What I'm saying is he's not an important character that needs to be one race or the other. He's a very important
character on this show, though. I mean, he's the male lead.
Which is interesting, but okay. I mean, but I think that's what I'm hoping is that they held audition. They weren't auditioning for a black guy.
He just gave the best performance, right?
Yes, I'm hoping that's what happening, but it probably not. It probably was.
Who knows what the casting sheet said, right?
Yeah,
it's funny because back in the Tim Burton days, when Superman Lives was going to come out in the '90s, Chris Rock was always the rumored guy that was going to be Jimmy Olsen. But why? I mean, why are they changing it? These characters are iconic for a reason, and you're completely changing the iconography because he's a goofy white guy with freckles and a bow tie, right? That's not going to be Mehcad Brooks.
No, but I mean, I think
unless they're going in a ridiculous different direction. But okay.
Well, it is. I mean, he apparently the line on this character is Jimmy Olsen. He has recently been living and working in National City, though the reason is still a secret. And his salt-of-the-earth nature quickly piques Kara's interest. So he's also a photographer for Catco, which is Cat Grant's media conglomerate. Cat Grant is a side character in comic books and was also on shows like Lois and Clark and Smallville. Always working for the Daily Planet. So interesting, the Daily Planet doesn't exist here. Maybe? I'm not sure. Lots of question marks to be filled in. See, it's hard to judge these casting decisions because we don't know what kinds of characters they're being asked to play.
True.
Because they're not going to be the iconic Supergirl, the iconic Jimmy Olsen, which also begs the question, why do it? Right? I mean, why use these characters?
Think about Arrow. every time you hear someone's full name, it's someone from the comic book. I mean, why not do it? Just, it adds a sort of life to this. I mean, DC Comics has been around for how long?
75 years.
75 years, right? They have a bunch of history, and a lot of it's unused. Just, go and pull up a name like Felicity Smoke. She was a character, some like random character, but they brought her out of, archives, and now she's a big part of the universe. There's no reason not to do that. You have all these names, don't make them a new name. Like,
but
we're gonna call him.
You're making my point. You're making
Jeremy
my point,
Bones.
Steve. There's plenty of characters out there. Why are we going to take these iconic characters and completely change them? When you can introduce new characters.
See, I think for me, it depends. I don't care so much. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to change how they look, I feel like the feel of the character, like if you're true to who the character is as a person and their decisions and motivations make sense, that matters less if they match like a physical description.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. But the problem here is they've changed.
But see, I don't know anything about Jimmy Olsen, so maybe you could tell me.
Well, Jimmy Olsen,
he's a smart, worldly photographer.
He's a goofy teenage intern at the Daily Planet who looks up to Clark Kent and Lois Lane as like his mentors. Okay.
Oh, that does seem different from how they have him described.
And here he's like the male lead, so I'm sure there's going to be a romance there because there is a precedent. No, there's a precedent in the comic books for Jimmy Olsen and Supergirl to kind of like each other. That was also existed in Smallville a little bit. So, and by the way, Aaron Ashmore, Sean Ashmore's twin brother, played Jimmy Olsen on Smallville, and he did a great job because he's a goofy-looking white guy with a bow tie, and a camera. So,
oh Lord.
So I agree. Like, if you were making it, because like the Kingpin, right? When they changed the Kingpin to African American and they changed him to Michael Clark Duncan, he was totally the same. He was a crime boss who was undercover, and he was a big guy, but he could take care of himself. And so they didn't change anything else about the character, pretty much, except for his race, his ethnicity. So it didn't matter, right? If you're gonna make a Superman movie and you want to cast, Mos Def as Jimmy Olsen, fine, go ahead, because he's still
yes,
but he's still gonna play the same role, right? But this is just like, I don't know, like if you're gonna completely change the character itself, make him had a bad experience.
Good point.
So if you're gonna change so much, why even call him Jimmy Olsen? So hey, I'm going to watch the show. I'm going to give it a chance. I watched the first half of Gotham and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I certainly deserve, Supergirl certainly deserves at least half a season of my attention.
Yeah.
So, we'll just see. Like I said, we don't know what kind of characters these actors are asked to play yet. So, we'll see how it all comes together.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think there's just not enough to go on yet.
Well, we have two people in the cast. Okay, I really don't know much about their acting. So I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, she was great in this one thing. So we'll see.
Was he a vampire on True Blood, by the way?
Not where I am.
Not yet.
He definitely was. He definitely isn't one of like the old vampires. He might be made into a vampire. I don't know, but you've seen it all.
Nope. Stopped watching after season 4 because it was just entirely too absurd.
You know who else is in True Blood? Anna Paquin. You know why she's famous? For being Rogue. And next, we have some X-Men news.
And next year, XMen Apocalypse coming out, which is a pretty famous storyline from the comic books that I know nothing about. So we won't talk about that. But what we can talk about is that they announced some of the younger versions of these superheroes. Because this is going to follow, I guess, in the First Class line.
Right. It's going to take place in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which makes it about 20 years before the original X-Men. Which means that we need younger versions of Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Storm.
Now, let's start off with Jean Grey, who's going to be played by Sophie Turner, and which she's famous for Game of Thrones, and for the first about 4 seasons, I didn't really care about Sansa Stark, boring character. But then the very last scene that she's in the last episode of the 4th season, she turned into a total badass bitch, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm excited to see what goes on for her. And then I read the books, and I was good to be excited. So
I was just about to say,
she can act. She can act. She's done her thing. I have no problems with that. She's going to do a good job. I'm not. I mean, I'm guessing the Game of Thrones is a pretty strenuous set. So if she can do that.
Plus, I think there's some serious shit coming up that she's going to have to film that is, like, I don't know. I think it's going to take a good actor.
In Game of Thrones, you mean?
It's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Game of Thrones. Yeah, I mean...
Well, this is the only...
I think Sansa's going to be one of the only people to survive the entire end of that series because I think where she is in the story, like she is
who she's with.
Huh,
You know,
Littlefinger severely underestimated her. I think.
Well, and you know what? Littlefinger is, if she sticks close to him, he's all about survival, so she can use that for a long time. But that's just not a Game of Thrones.
I actually think she's gonna. It's good that Sophie Turner is Jean Grey because she's the one that has like the real chops here out of the people announced. So that's probably pretty good.
Yeah, she was the character who really got them. Well, I don't know. Actually, Cyclops is pretty slighted too. All these characters are not handled too well.
Indeed,
in the original trilogy. So it's
totally
good to get a fresh slate with them. She's the only one Cyclops? I've seen before. Yeah, Cyclops is being
Ty Sheridan.
Ty Sheridan.
I don't think I know this dude.
He was
Do you guys know
he
him?
was in the movie Joe with Nicolas Cage.
Go look at a picture of him. He is definitely douchey enough to play Cyclops.
LOL.
But
Okay.
see, that's the problem. The Cyclops is, he's the Superman. He's the Captain America of the X-Men.
He's the douchebag of the X-Men.
Well,
I hate Cyclops.
Superman is not a douchebag.
Cyclops gets sacrificed on the altar of Wolverine in every single X-Men movie. You know what I mean? So they just use him as like he's just an obstacle or like
Oh my
the straight
god, this
man.
kid's face.
You know?
Sorry, Ty.
Right?
You do look douchey,
Look,
bro.
he's gonna
I'm
be wearing
sorry.
a visor the whole time, so don't worry about it. Okay?
Oh, but the hair, you guys, the hair.
They can give him a haircut. Look, they can make
No, I mean it's perfect, is what I'm saying.
okay,
You're
all right.
right, Steve.
I've never liked Cyclops. He's dumb. I hate him. Stupid.
Yep.
I assume that this will be that. Well, it's not the first class anymore, but it's he's reopened the school, right? Xavier, and these are his first 3 students because I always found it funny in Days of Future Past, Wolverine. He's like, look for Jean, for Scott, for Storm. Storm, how the hell are you gonna find her by that name, right? Her name is I can't pronounce it, but you know what her name is, right, guys?
It starts with an O.
Well, now that you freaking put me on the spot, I can't remember.
Aurora Monroe.
There we go.
There we go.
Starts with an O.
It's like, how you gonna find her like that, Charles?
Look for Aurora.
He's like, oh damn.
Look for Storm.
He's like, damn, what was her name? I can't remember.
I can't.
So he's gone and sought them out, and this is his new class. So I hope that they're gonna really be the focus, of whatever the story they're telling with Apocalypse. It's not gonna be just like Days of Future Past was not the Days of Future Past story per se. It was an interpretation. XMen Apocalypse will be an interpretation of that Apocalypse story. So.
And it says it's supposedly set in the 80s. That should be interesting.
Yeah, they're going to catch up to... I don't know what they're going to do, because the X-Men movies are really back on track now, but they're going to catch up to the old trilogy at some point, and I'm not... Like, they're going to have to stop, making movies. Or they could stop jumping ahead 10 years with every movie.
Wait a second.
And then have some more time.
Mm-hmm.
Is the future from future Days of Future Past, like the Apocalypse future, that was part of the timeline from the first movies, right?
Original timeline, yeah.
So they're in an alternate timeline, so they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Well, they need to grow up and look like those characters because it's been established in the new timeline that everyone's played by the same people in the future. Huh?
Well, no.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think that's actually pretty loose. I think they could do whatever they want.
Well, X-Men is one of the most ridiculous all over the map continuities. Like,
it's true.
So why start now?
Well, they're trying to. Bryan Singer has tried a couple times to bring it all together with First Class as well as with Days of Future Past, but we'll see. But let's not be remiss and let's mention that Storm is played by Alexandra Shipp, who is best known for playing Aaliyah in her Lifetime biopic last year. So I've never seen her in anything because I don't. I used to watch Lifetime for the Unsolved Mysteries reruns, but now they've edited out Robert Stack and replaced him with the guy from Snatch, who's also now deceased. So you're just fighting a losing battle there. Just stick with Robert Stack. If Bryan Singer cast her, I'm sure she's good. He has not made a bad casting choice yet, other than Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane. Please, God, take some screen time away from Jennifer Lawrence. Okay, I think we're all sick of her. Okay, she's everywhere. Like, I know you're going to be upset.
I'm not sick of Jennifer Lawrence, but I'm tired of who she is in the X-Men
universe.
Well,
no, that's what I mean. It's like, look, Mystique, okay, First Class, fine. She was there, but like she was the whole crux of Days of Future Past. Oh, she's so essential. And now it's like,
Let's
okay.
tell you something. You know what? It's not the fact that you're blue, Mystique. It's your nasty hair. Use some conditioner. Get some body.
Totally.
Just
Hey,
all you need
you
is
know
some
what? Did you
bodies
not?
and hair.
Did you not learn the lesson from X2, Steve? She shouldn't have to.
So I went to San Antonio a couple months ago and I did a Segway tour, which brings me to the next point.
Not quite as
Oh my
smooth as the
God.
last one, but go ahead, Steve.
Okay, no, for real. So we're going to
Tom Hardy, yes. Tom Hardy has dropped out of Suicide Squad.
Oh, man.
He was cast as Rick Flag. Now, apparently they all signed on and hadn't read the script.
which is dumb.
Which is, yeah, that's their own fault, right? And then he got the script and he didn't like it. Now, this is the behind-the-scenes story. I think the official story is there were, quote, schedule conflicts, unquote, which means that he just didn't want to be in the movie.
Right.
I'm fine with this because I would...
Washing my hair that day.
You know how many Bane jokes would be, like... and
so
memes
many.
and all kinds of... I'm glad that's just past us, okay? Tom Hardy's not in another DC movie. He's not going to be Rick Flag. We can just put away the Bane jokes and the Bane voice and all that stuff. Let that just fade away because it's getting annoying. It's been like 3 years now. People, let it go. So, now, the person that was originally rumored to replace him was Jake Gyllenhaal. And that had me very excited because I thought he was great in Nightcrawler. And I think it's a travesty that he was... Neither he nor the movie was nominated for an Oscar as far as Best Picture or Best Actor were concerned. So I think that's a crime. But apparently he turned it down too. I mean, but it's Rick Flag. I mean, who really wants to be that character? He's basically the Maria Hill of the DC universe
Right.
to Amanda Waller's Nick Fury, right? So it's like, oh, why? Why would I want to be this character? So whatever. I mean, I'm sure like anyone can play that role. So I don't think it's a big deal that Tom Hardy dropped out. I mean, what do you guys? Do you guys care?
No. I mean, the bad part about this is that it's going to be hard for get my wife to go see it. I mean, without Tom Hardy. But, who cares about... You know, honestly, my real feelings on this is I don't care enough about this movie to give a shit who's in it.
You guys,
there we go.
I'm actually
Me
very
too.
excited for this movie. I'm very excited for this movie. You got Will Smith as Deadshot.
I would rather go see Men in Black
Quinn.
4 than this movie.
God.
And I'm being deadly serious.
I never even saw Men in Black 3 because Men in Black 2 was so awful.
Men in Black 3 was better. As typically, you got the 1, 3, 2. But Independence Day 2, there. iRobot, just freaking, you know.
iRobot.
The remake of The Matrix with Will Smith.
Will Smith, who was the original choice for Neo, by the way. He
I
turned
know,
it
that's
down.
what I'm saying.
So, Will Smith doesn't do sequels other than Men in Black. He doesn't do them. That's why he turned down ID4. So, which they just need to... That's the sequel trilogy. They need to not make any more of those movies, by the way. If there's no Jeff Goldblum and no Will Smith, then what's the point? But anyway, I'm actually excited for Suicide Squad. I think there could be a lot of potential here. You got the Joker in it. You know, I mean, this is a nice corner of the DC universe that no one is aware of outside of comic book nerds. So
That's fair. I think because I don't know about it, I don't care either way. I'm curious to see what happens, but oh no, Jake Gyllenhaal's not there. I'm not.
Oh yeah, I mean, he would have been great. I would like to see him get a role. I don't care DC, Marvel, what. I would like to see him get a comic book role of some kind because he's a great actor. Prince of Persia doesn't count. That was a video game, and I actually liked that movie. By the way, did you guys see Prince of Persia?
It's the kind of, you know, I like Big Budget Bombs. It's the kind of movie I like.
That's
of course,
true.
I
It's
like
right up your alley. Like
it is.
I
It's
enjoyed
true.
it.
I didn't care about Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they showed a trailer, and I was like, "Holy crap! I want to see this movie." So you know what? By the time it comes out, maybe I will want to see it, and maybe I will be like, "Man, I wish Tom Hardy was in this," but who cares? Who cares at this point? Who cares?
Well, you know what we do care about is Ghostbusters.
Well, you guys care about Ghostbusters.
What? You don't like Ghostbusters?
Want a new drug?
It's
Well,
okay.
Hey! Don't settle out of court, buddy.
Yeah, see, I'm not. I mean, I'm not like I like it. I thought it was a good movie, but I think I was chain watching a bunch of like other things over and over again.
Yeah,
and not
okay.
that film.
Fair enough.
So,
What do you think, Steve, about Ghostbusters? What's your stance on just Ghostbusters itself before we get into the story?
You cannot fail with that cast.
Totally agree.
And if it was 4 other people, it probably wouldn't be as a thing. I think it's funny because you have these guys who are scientists, but they're kind of they're
misfit scientists.
They're goofballs, and then they're given this like powerful thing, and they go into business. That's hilarious. So like go into business with this amazing technology, and like we should be firefighters,
and no one respects them. You know what I mean? It's like we just proved that there's another plane of existence that ghosts exists on. And we go around town capturing them, and no one gives a crap. They're like, "Oh, the Ghostbusters again."
And then we realize that the guy from the EPA was really the good guy. How, like, you know what? You should regulate that. You have a nuclear reactor strapped to your back. Okay, come on.
That's true.
The first one was good. The second one, I love the beginning because they're jokes now. They've worked themselves out of the
Yes, I love that
job.
where they're dancing to like the Ghostbusters theme, and they're like, boo, the kids are like, "Boo, we want He-Man," doing birthday parties.
He-Man,
Skeletor.
man.
But the people diss Ghostbusters 2 all the time. I really don't see that big of a difference between the movies, to be honest. Like, the first one's great, it's original, it's funny. The second one, it's not as original, but I find it amusing. And they actually kind of dealt with the consequences of the first one. Like, hey, you almost blew up New York, so we sued you and we shut down your business, and now you have to do birthday parties. Like,
Yeah,
that's like legitimate. And Dan Aykroyd, I'm scared. And Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver did not end up together. You know, an anti-cliche. You know, and so they have to get back together again in the second
story
movie.
for a sequel. Now, they've been talking about Ghostbusters 3 for a long time.
Yeah, since Ghostbusters 2.
and it's just never lined up. The last I heard, it was going to be Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, and
Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
So they were going to all be in. Everybody was going to come back. Bill Murray may or may not be in it. Bill Murray was the big holdout for so long.
Well, and last I heard, I don't know if it was a rumor or what. Those three guys are going to be back, and then, Bill Murray was going to be a ghost.
Yeah, like they were gonna kill him, and he was gonna be a ghost for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
I thought, that's a nice compromise. You know, they made the Ghostbusters video game a few years ago with all the original cast returned to do the voices. You know. And it was. I have not played it, but apparently it's a pretty fun game, and it pretty much serves the purpose of a Ghostbusters 3. It takes place in the 90s, you know, after Ghostbusters 2. So, you know, that's basically your Ghostbusters 3. Now, when Harold Ramis died, that's like a sign, like, okay, just stop. Just. I mean, he was a writer. He was one of the main stars. Like, just don't make any more Ghostbusters movies. It's that hard to stop. And, you know, but of course, what are they doing? They're rebooting it, because that's what we do in Hollywood today. Why do you need to reboot Ghostbusters? Why can't you just say, hey, 20 years ago, these guys started Ghostbusters, and now we're the Ghostbusters today?
Well,
you know?
Okay. At some point, it's either going to be for the sequel or the original. Like, I know they were just going to be a team. Like, now they franchise, basically. And so now in every country, in every city, in every country, there are Ghostbuster teams, like kind of like the Blue Man Group, right? Because there's there's ghosts everywhere besides New York, and so it would make sense for these people to be just one of the teams that are out there. You know, maybe they open up a new shop, so it doesn't need to be a reboot.
Right, and you can have Dan Aykroyd can be a cameo, or an Ernie Hudson, like, you know, in charge of the Chicago branch of Ghostbusters.
Absolutely.
And this one takes place in Florida or something, you know.
And you know what? It might be. We haven't heard the fact that it's completely new.
No, I heard it's new because they want Bill Murray to be a different character, apparently. And I have faith that he will continue to turn.
Wait! He's going to be back in this one?
No, I know, right?
That guy.
That would be the complete. That would be such a dick move. By Bill Murray. Oh, good. I'll come back for this. No, apparently the studio is pursuing him to be a different character in this film. I have faith he'll say no. But okay, so we're burying the lead here. But here's the problem with this reboot. Look, a years later sequel with a new team, fine, do it, great. A reboot, just a clean reboot, fine, do that too. But here's the problem. They're rebooting it with the angle of, it's an all-female cast. Like, what the hell kind of strategy is that? Like, I mean, why does it have to be either or? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Nancy, what do you think about that? Do you find that condescending? Like, here, ladies, here's a Ghostbusters for you to enjoy. You know, why can't we all enjoy the same stuff?
I don't know if they really did that so cynically, the way that you're describing it.
Well,
I have to say, though, the 4 people that they've picked are all fucking hilarious in their own right.
Yes, Kristen Wiig is one of the best people on SNL in recent years, for sure.
Okay,
Melissa
I know, but
McCarthy.
have you seen Kate McKinnon? She's one of my favorites. I don't know if you guys watch SNL, but it used to be like total like garbage. Well, it was garbage.
I have occasionally seen skits from it, and yes, I did recognize Kate McKinnon, and she's very funny.
Love Kate McKinnon. Her Justin Bieber. Oh my God, it's so good.
No,
She's hilarious. I would love to see her in a movie. I literally had that thought like a few weeks ago, and then they announced the casting, and I was like, oh, nice.
Well, Leslie Jones, I'm not familiar with her at all.
So she's also new to the SNL cast.
Okay.
She is a very like loud, bombastic kind of personality. I feel like she could probably do some really good drama too if she wanted to.
Okay.
I don't know.
Most comedians can, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's so true.
And
That's one of my favorite movies is The Truman Show. When Jim Carrey is not being funny, but whatever. I think it sort of depends how they deliver on that.
Well, here's
right?
the final. Let's not forget the final cast member, Melissa McCarthy.
You know what's funny for me right now is I'm watching through Gilmore Girls and Melissa McCarthy, and I did not realize this. I don't know how I missed that.
She was in that?
Yeah, she's like a secondary character that's there
she's
throughout
Suki.
the show. Yeah, I know, but people don't know who that is.
No, don't take this the wrong way, but is she just like a fat joke the whole time like she is in most of her movies, or does she have some more to her character?
Absolutely not. No, not at all. That's why I asked.
Because
she
has a sitcom based on the fact that she is overweight, okay? So that is my...
You know what? I gotta be honest, the more that I watch Gilmore Girls, the more that I'm like really sad with some of the stuff that she took, I feel like, after that, because
she took the wrong fork in the road, huh?
Well, I think she just, I don't know, I think there are a lot of reasons why actors pick to do, that's a lot of reasons why they make those decisions, but I feel like she's just better than some of the stuff she chose now that I've seen her,
she was,
like, man...
Yeah, she's larger than the average norm, but back in the Gilmore Girls days, she really wasn't.
Oh no, I love Suki so much. She's great.
And and now she sort of plays this character where she's like, oh, she's a big gal and she's crazy and messy and kind of gross but hilarious.
Yeah,
and
she is in every movie.
I know, and that makes me really. I mean, I kind of thought that's who she was until I saw Gilmore Girls, honestly, and then I realized like. I mean, I've liked her in like The Heat and Star. That is her in The Heat, right?
The Heat, yeah,
she's funny.
That's a funny movie.
Bridesmaid,
she is hilarious, and Bridesmaid. Like, I just
okay. You mentioned
I hope she is not like that in the Ghostbusters.
Well,
movie.
here you mentioned Bridesmaids, right? And
yep.
So the Paul Feig is the director. He directed Bridesmaids. He's directing the Ghostbusters reboot. You get Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy back. I mean, is this not like Ghostbusters Bridesmaids edition?
See, I don't know, because you have the other two. Kate McKinnon is not like that at all. And honestly, if you're going to have one person be the loud, bombastic, gross, messy person, then it's going to be a toss-up probably between Leslie and Melissa. I hope they don't do that at all. But
I find it ridiculous that like they went to the same ethnicity breakdown, too. It's like, okay, we got the three white people and the one black person. It's like, really?
I found that hilarious, but
that seems to me like total CYA. Like we've covered all the diversity barriers. Like,
it's just ridiculous. Like, can we not mix it? Can we have a Hispanic or an
I
Asian? I mean, like, nope.
But
three whites and a black.
Right, but then you get accused of tokenism. When you have, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised. The men's rights assholes are always everywhere all the time. So, it's not really surprising that this, like, huge backlash to the Ghostbusters. Everyone's like,
Nancy.
You're shitting on my childhood. Are you for real?
Right.
Look, lots of people grew up...
This movie's your whole childhood? Give me a break.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, Nancy, because the original Ghostbusters was, like, just an adult movie. Like, and the reason it became like for kids was the cartoon that came out after the Ghostbusters, and the whole reason they made a sequel is because the cartoon was so popular. The cartoon is completely different. Like, it's pretty ridiculous the longer it ran.
I just remember Slimer being on my high C box.
Yes, exactly. He was for years. It was
forever.
I was like, he's the official sponsor of High C. It's like you either have Juicy Juice with that creepy face, or you have High C with Slimer. Those are your two choices.
Now, getting back to what you were saying about the Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
What's interesting is when you had Ghostbusters, you had Ivan Reitman, God, I forgot his fucking name again. Harold Ramis. and Bill Murray, who were from Stripes, right?
They worked
that was
together.
their big
they were
thing.
Collaborators, yeah.
And then you added some Saturday Night Live with Dan Aykroyd. I mean, basically it's the same exact story. So you know what? Don't just because they're all in the same movie, we know they're hilarious together. I mean, I'm sure they'll be fine. I think my problem with this is that it didn't matter if it was an all-female cast or an all-Asian cast or an all-robot cast. I don't want a new Ghostbusters team. Doesn't matter who it is.
Well, Ghostbusters is the one, and that's what we were saying about franchising it out. Like, of all the things you can remake from like the '80s, like RoboCop or God forbid, Back to the Future one day, like Ghostbusters is the one thing you don't have to reboot. You can just say, hey, those guys were 20 years ago, and here we are today. Like, it's so silly to feel the need to like reboot it and to have like it's not an agenda or it's not an angle. I don't know what to say, but you know what I'm saying? Like the women only, like that mandate of women, all women only. It's silly. Why can't we have a mixed cast? Why can't you have 6 or 7 people and there's men and there's women and there's white people and there's black people working together, making the world?
I think it's easy. Well, it's easy to say that. But I don't really want to get into the politics of that because we don't have enough time. But I mean, it's not as simple as being like, oh, we'll mix it and it's equal, because that's really not a true statement.
Here you go. Ken Jeong as a Ghostbuster, perfect, right? Yeah, I mean, he should be the Rick Moranis of this movie. What do you guys think? The problem is he's a guy, and we have to turn that character into
First of all, I don't want there to be a Rick Moranis of this movie. I don't want it to be like a reboot. I don't want this movie to happen, okay? I don't want it to happen at all. Just stop it.
Well, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. So I'm just trying to think of ways to make it better. Okay, because these things are going to happen. All right.
I don't really understand what is so bad about it. As long as they only take a few tangential things from the first film and make 0 references back to stuff, it'll probably be fine.
That's the problem. Okay.
Well, explain to me what the problem is then.
It's not like I'm not going to say it's just shitting on my heart. I'm sure this will be a funny movie with the cast. How can it not be? Okay, but make something
new.
Like why is it Ghostbusters at all? Like, just use the 4 of them for something else? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Like, okay, think about this. Like, Hot Tub Time Machine, right?
Ugh.
What? You don't like it?
No.
What?
I hate it.
Well,
I don't like that it ruined my chances for my Back to the Future idea. But,
that's what I'm saying. No, instead of remaking Back to the Future, just go make Hot Tub Time Machine, right? Like, it's a similar kind of thing, but it's different enough and whatever, right? I mean, don't remake Ghostbusters, make something similar.
Ghostbusters, I'm not being very clear, and let me say this. I don't have a problem with it making Ghostbusters because Ghostbusters was so great. I have a problem because Ghostbusters wasn't that great if you take out the people in it.
It is so rare to recapture lightning in a bottle. Right?
I mean, it's not offending
me. But I don't
me.
think they're trying to do that. I think they're just going for the, oh, hey, here's an idea that hasn't been, looked at for a little while. Let's, throw some funny people at it and see what happens. I don't really think... I don't know. I just don't feel like it's as, sinister or serious. And I say this as someone who is not... invested at all. So I think I'm not as... And I understand, and I appreciate that. So I understand what you're saying. But, you don't think there's any chance it could actually be good?
No, I'm saying it probably will be good. I just don't want it to exist.
I don't think it'll be good. I don't think it'll be good. I mean, it's going to be lowest common denominator joke.
These women are hilarious. I mean,
I really hope not, because they're all funnier than that.
It's going to be like, oh, look, those women. There's a scene, they're all going to be suiting up, and Melissa McCartney can't fit into her freaking suit. Right, that's a scene right there. Right, that's a gag. It's gonna happen.
You're almost definitely right.
Okay, or she can't slide down the fire pole. Right, she gets stuck. Right, I mean, this is gonna be just never-ending fat jokes with Melissa McCartney. Is gonna be throughout the whole movie.
If that's true, I'm walking out.
But you know it's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen.
No,
that's why she's
you know what? No, honestly, I have started to just wish for the best. I am always disappointed by everyone my entire life anyway, as a melancholy, cynical person. So I feel like I should just, hope for the best, and then if it happens, I'm surprisingly, excited.
Well, I always saw the next Ghostbusters to be Bill Murray, having gotten rich off this idea of franchising it, but he's sort of estranged from the other guys. Maybe not Ernie Hudson, but definitely the 2 scientists, and it's just and then he has to get them all together for one last thing. That would be great, and then he dies, which is good. I could say this 10 times. I just don't want this movie. I'm sure it'll be good just because of the people, the director, and the cast. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm hoping they're not gonna. I don't even know what I want. Do I want them to stay as far away from the original as possible, or try to follow it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
We're just very conflicted on this, Nancy.
Yeah,
that's fair. I understand.
Because Ghostbusters was always on the list of things like, oh God, don't remake these. Right, don't remake Back to the Future.
I understand.
Don't remake Ghostbusters, and here we are talking about Ghostbusters with this absurd angle of like, oh, women only,
It's kind of like no, I totally understand because when someone threw around the rumor that like Disney was talking to Chris Pratt about being Indiana Jones, I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
just leave that alone.
But he would be perfect if you had to recast.
Yeah,
don't
but
recast. Don't make it. Let it die.
Well, yeah, much like Back to the Future. I know we keep making the comparison, but it's a nexus of all these genres. It's comedy, it's sci-fi.
That's very true.
There's drama in there. So I mean, there's a lot of components to it. So it's hard to really fit in a category. And if you don't really understand all the ingredients that made it so successful, it's going to be impossible to replicate. And without people like Harold Ramis, who was one of the brains behind it. You're fighting an uphill battle, so
it's fair.
But we're all gonna go see it. So, well, cool guys. Well, that was a good back and forth there, talking about some casting. Had some opinions on some things, and not so many opinions on others. But that's how it works, on these shows where it's the news show, getting us caught up on all the current events, and there's even more stuff, and we didn't even talk about a lot of other things going on, and that's why we do shows on a pretty much a weekly basis. We try to get them out. But yeah, so casting is always going to be a great fallback topic because nothing gets people riled up in nerd culture like casting, right? So as you have just heard. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Another exciting episode of Nerds Explain It All. I'm Zach.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Nancy.
We don't break the news, but we do break it down. When they reboot Star Trek again, it's on. So when they reboot Next Generation, God forbid. So, James McAvoy or Tom Hardy for young Captain Picard, Steve? What do you think?
I think it's McAvoy. That's what I think.
All right, fair enough.
I'm just putting that out there. I'm 99% sure it's McAvoy.
But, I think so too, but I've never said anything.
Well, let's see. Who could play Riker?
Chris Pratt.
No. Well.
Yeah, Chris Pratt can play anyone.
At this point, maybe, yeah. I don't know, but all I know is that Child Nancy had a massive crush on Riker.
But with or without the beard?
Oh, with the beard.
Interesting.
What kind of question is that?
I thought most women didn't like facial hair. That's been my experience.
I'm totally in the minority if that's true.
Oh, no, it's definitely not true, Zach. Just because you can't grow facial hair.
I need to get growing a beard then. Somebody
told me you really probably can't, which I'm sorry.
I probably told you that.
Yeah.
So. There's pictures of my attempts. They're not pretty. So, but hey, Tom Hiddleston is Data. Am I right? Huh? Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. And Lore. Yeah. And Noonien Soong. So that's
okay. We're done.